Funding for Shaperless is provided by
Surfshark VPN. Tune until the end to find out about their amazing service. Hey gang, I haven't talked about Persona in many a year, so I figured why not rank my absolute favorite part of the series, the social links. I'm dead serious. As much as Persona works because of the balance between dungeon crawling demon battles and living out your life as a regular high school student forming bonds with others, I gotta be honest, it's that second thing that really keeps me hooked on the series. I'm obsessed with raising my social link rankings and helping people from all walks of life sort out their problems, or just hanging out with them. I adore the social link system, and since I've played every single game in the series that has these links, that being 3, 4, 5, and 3 portable, I didn't forget, I figured it would be really fun to make one gigantic video ranking all of them. So I started out with the Persona 4 social links, and by the end of that process, I was extremely exhausted with a massive 17-page script that only constituted a third of the ground I needed to cover. I realized that this really could have just been a whole ass video on its own. So, long story short, now it is! Every Persona 4 social link ranked. This is actually beneficial from an audience standpoint, since there are a lot of people who haven't played every Persona game with social links, and now they can just watch the video on the game they did play without getting spoilers. And it's beneficial for me, because after I make all 3 videos, then I can combine them all together into the massive ranking I always intended to make, and get even more views and money. Plus, since the ranking will be combined, that way you can officially find out if Ayane Matsunaga is a better social link than Chihiya Mifune, or whatever, in case you're interested in that. Anyway though, it's Persona 4 social link o'clock today. In addition to giving my general thoughts on each social link, I thought it might be fun to highlight my favorite rank up event for each one. Each link is split up into 10 separate story events, so I thought it'd be neat to highlight which one of these events resonated the most with me for each person. I'm only going to be ranking the social links based on one character, meaning I'm not going to be including the investigation team and Seekers of Truth links, because those feel much more tied to story progression than actual character relationship progression. With that said, automatic social links you have with one person will be included. Yippee! One other thing I wanted to make clear is that I'm mostly putting aside any feelings on the character themselves and solely judging the quality of the story their social link tells. For example, some of the party members in this game aren't going to be ranked incredibly high, but that's not a reflection of how much I enjoy their characters. I love a lot of them, and in a couple cases, I wish the story they got in their social link was a bit stronger. So yeah, the way the party members are ranked in this list is not actually a reflection of how much I like their characters or their role in the main story, just the storylines in their social link. I think with this ranking at least, my takes are going to be mostly agreeable when considering what a lot of the fanbase thinks. You know, pretty much the exact opposite of my Persona intro ranking. But with that said, I'm sure the fanbase will find something to complain about anyway. Let's get started! Disappointment in the game of life! There are 2 types of social links in this world. Regular ones, where you seek a character out and actively choose to spend time with them and progress their link. And automatic ones, which happen forcibly over the course of the main story. Automatic social links are kinda hit and miss, because oftentimes, it doesn't really feel like you're bonding with the character. More so, the game is telling you that you're bonding with them. And that's a one-way ticket to resenting that character if they're not actually all that enjoyable to be around. While there's a certain base game Persona 5 link that really embodies that perfectly, boy howdy does Persona 4 have a very terrible one of its own. Teddy's got an automatic social link, and yep, as you would expect, it really blows. You basically get no one-on-one time to hang out with him. His rank ups are almost always tacked onto a scene with the entire group present. There isn't really a natural progression across them. He just vaguely talks about how much he wants to get stronger, to figure out what he is, to read off all the personal information about the girls' bodies. It really doesn't help that Teddy is far and away my least favorite character in Persona 4. So the entire time, I kept shouting at the screen, "Oh my god, we are not friends, Teddy! I do not want to deepen my bond with you!" And even if I liked Teddy, this link would still suck and feel haphazard and forced. I don't think any bias is affecting my judgment here. I liked rank 10 the best, where you just talk to him alone in the Velvet Room and tell him Nanako's still alive. It was a decent conclusion to whatever the hell this was. I liked the scene where he was on the roof where Strego was in the previous game. That's pretty much it. What a nothing social link. It makes absolutely no sense for it to be automatic. At least Morgana, a character I hate more, has an automatic social link that feels much more organic to the progression of the main story. Nothing in this one is organic. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to just hang out with Teddy on your off days. Not that I would want to because I hate him, but at least the story with him would probably be significantly less shitty and incoherent. Awful social link. I want him shot.
Get me, son.
The Elizabeth dates in Persona 3 Fest were so good, Atlas figured, why not make a dedicated social link for the Velvet Room attendants? Hell yeah! I can't wait to take Margaret out on dates, or we could just give her a certain persona with a certain skill attached for all 10 of these ranks. That works too, I guess. There's nothing to Margaret's social link. Every rank pretty much plays out the same way, and there's no story progression at all. She just says, thank you for the persona, your power is cool, and occasionally she'll make some sort of innuendo. That's it. I do like the brief references to Elizabeth here and there, and my favorite rank was 6, where she explains the Black Frost lore. That was neat, I suppose. Otherwise, I just don't bother with this. It goes nowhere, and it could have been so much more.
Nurse!
I'm on it.
So this is where Sayoko lives. I grew minors!
It's crazy how the social link about the woman who sexually harasses a minor is one of the most forgettable in the entire series. Yeah, the first 3 ranks of Sayoko Uehara's storyline are extremely uncomfortable as she comes onto you, yada yada yada. I don't really need to get into that. They thankfully shift gears from this awful first impression, but unfortunately the rest of the storyline is just kinda boring. She's a nurse and she was fooling around with a doctor who had a wife. Ooh, wow, so likable. She got transferred to a new hospital and a patient she was caring for at her previous hospital died. So now she's overworking to compensate for that, I guess. I hate to criticize this for being too close to something from a later game, but it really is hard to see this as nothing more than a weaker version of Takemi's storyline in Persona 5. And I'm sorry, the bad taste this character leaves in your mouth at the beginning of the social link makes it really hard to get invested in anything going on with her. There's at least a tangible growth with her becoming a better person by the end, and I guess in a vacuum, rank 10 is my favorite since it's a fine conclusion for her arc. But like, man, I don't know. Sorry I can't get invested in the pretty uninteresting and played out misadventures of a lady who would probably unironically say, I'm not a groomer, I'm just a loser, as a way of justifying her actions. I don't even know if this character has any fans, so I doubt anyone will lose sleep over this placement anyway. Next! Look, I was never on the Marie hate train like a lot of other fans are. I mean, I didn't particularly like her, but I didn't dislike her either. She's fine. She's a fine excuse for a new dungeon in Golden, and a couple cute scenes where you stumble upon her cringe poetry in the Velvet Room. She exists. But with that said, it wasn't until I started doing this video when I realized her social link is kinda garbage. I obviously do it every time to unlock the new dungeon, and I remember having some fun with it, until I realized that all the fun parts of this come from other characters who aren't Marie. Every single one of the first 7 out of 10 links feature at least one of your friends walking on in, and then they basically take over the whole showing Marie around thing that should have been your job. You know, because this is supposed to be about you bonding with her. The worst of it is rank 5, where every single one of your friends just happens to stumble upon you two at Juness. They all come in one at a time like it's a fucking sitcom and they're all hitting their cues. And that's really the biggest problem with this link. It just feels so artificial. Like the game is forcing all of your friends to bond with Marie so that they'll have an attachment to her when it's time for the final dungeon. But why? Your attachment to Marie should be enough to motivate all of your friends to help you. But the way this is set up, I really didn't find myself getting attached to Marie. They basically took the Elizabeth dates, removed all the charm and whimsy Elizabeth brought to the table, and then just plopped random characters in there with no rhyme or reason. The main story about her trying to remember her past only gets started at rank 6. It goes nowhere, and then she's like, okay, I guess I'm done trying to remember my past because I can just make new memories. Hooray! The conflict is resolved until we get to the final dungeon and start it back up again. It's just so sloppy and so meandering. These scenes go on way longer than your average social link. Like they're really trying to drive home the idea that, hey, you need to love and care about this girl and so do all of your friends. It's just insanely forced. Once again, I don't hate her, but man is her social link just a complete mess. ranks. I guess my favorite rank was, I don't know, 3. Solely because it was funny when she pointed out how Yukiko and Chie always wear nothing but red and green. I like when characters acknowledge that they wear the same outfit all the time. It's funny. Otherwise, this sucks. Out of every aspect of Persona 4, nothing quite bewilders me as much as this fox. It's not relevant to the story at all, but it follows you into the TV world and you can pay it to use its mystical healing leaves on you. What does this magic fox need money for anyway? Oh well, the reason I'm bringing him up is because for some reason, he has a social link. The social link entirely consists of doing fetch quests for different NPCs who leave their requests at the fox's shrine. It's an interesting idea for a social link, and there are definitely some cute moments, but for the most part, it's really unsubstantial and kinda boring. There are already countless fetch quests for you to do on the side throughout the game, so having an entire social link consist of nothing but these quests just feels like a bit of a waste. It's a little more involved and substantial than just fusing personas and giving them to Margaret. You do get a glimpse into the lives and troubles of some quirky side characters, like this boy who wants to become a sticker star among his peers, a guy who's afraid of cats, and when you try and say the word cat, he tells you not to say the C word, a lady trying to wean off snacks whose problem you solve by giving her some of Chie's meat gum, and my personal favorite, the man who lost his will to live and can only get it restored if you build a model for him. This screenshot is just so wonderful in ways I can't describe. Definitely some cute moments to be had here and there, but it gets exhausting after a while, and it never feels like you're growing closer to this fox or whatever. Each rank plays out exactly the same with him, and the only benefit is a discount on his healing services in the TV world. Once again, I just don't know why this fox needs money, I'm sorry. Sorta interesting, not the worst social link ever, but man is it also kind of a chore.
I'm your mama?
Eri Minami is commonly considered one of the most forgettable social links in the series. Yeah, I really don't have a lot to say about this one. I wouldn't call it terrible, but it's just really dull. I think it's a good idea to focus on a parent who's estranged from their child, since most of the time the social link is from the child's point of view. I like the general setup that this is her stepson and they just don't have anything to talk about together. But it feels like the way to improve this relationship is so obvious that she probably should have figured it out without your help. You tell her he's into the Featherman show, and so she buys him a toy and DVD from the show, and now he starts to like her. I don't know, man, was that so hard? I feel like it's really easy to figure out what kids like and use that to connect with them. I don't understand how at the end of the link, she resolves to actually watch him after school and not stick him in daycare. It just makes it feel like she wasn't really trying that hard before. And she's a pretty bland character in general, so I don't really feel like I get anything out of talking to her. I don't even know if I have a favorite rank for this one. It all just kind of blends together in my mind. 7, I guess? That's when the kid starts to like her, and it's kinda sweet. Plenty of sweet moments to be found here and there, but overall, it's a pretty weak and forgettable storyline that I always skip unless I'm low on cash and need this job.
Everybody hates me!
No, little dude!
Alright, I'm just gonna jump the gun a bit on this one. Shu Nakajima's social link is only worth doing for the rank 9 event. It's genuinely one of my favorite scenes in this entire game, and I always trudge through the rest of this storyline just to get to it. Well, okay, maybe that's a bit unfair. Doing the social link also raises some of your social stats and gives you money, so it's worth it for that too. Anyway, what's this about? Shu Takumi is a kid you have to tutor, and his mom drills into him how important it is to get good grades. But he doesn't have any friends or do anything else outside of studying. He's lonely and he doesn't want to live up to the expectations and pressure his mom is putting on him to excel academically. I think that's a really good idea for a storyline, but this link puts way too much emphasis on telling rather than showing. Shu's mom barely shows up, and every single rank of the link takes place in his room. The idea is good, but the execution isn't really interesting. It could have used some more scenes where you see his mom bragging to people she knows about him, or scenes where he sees kids his age hanging out and having fun, but he feels too nervous to join them, or maybe he tries, but he acts a little awkward around them. Relatable content! Instead, we just kind of hear him yap about this transfer student we never meet, and look man, I'm sorry, I'm just tutoring him for the money at this point. But that rank 9 event, man, it's so damn good. Basically, Shu got suspended for cheating, and his mom is furious. After After she leaves, we find out it's his birthday and she didn't even seem to remember. So what do? We throw an impromptu birthday party with all of our friends showing up. It's the sweetest thing I could have possibly imagined for this storyline. Shu is so depressed that he wonders if he should have even been born, and everyone calls him stupid for this. Is that really what you want to say to him right now? Are you sure? I guess it works though. We get some kooky hijinks where the lights go off and everybody causes a ruckus. I'm a big fan of planking Chie personally. And after they all leave, Shu tells us about his suspension situation and how much he hates always having to be number one all the time because his mom expects that of him. Both this and the birthday party are the best parts of the social link, but they really didn't have to be both crammed into rank 9. Give one of these to another rank, I don't know. Ultimately, rank 10 picks up after Shu told his mom his concerns, and she consoled him saying they can start over as a family. Why did the climax of the story happen off screen? Why couldn't we have been there to back Shu up? It's a nice story with some relatable elements, but the execution made it a lot more dull than it needed to be. Worth it for the adorable birthday scene, but otherwise, yeah, I'm tutoring him for the money. Ayane is perhaps the most prominent example of a character's design completely overtaking all of my thoughts about them. Because how am I able to focus on any aspect of her personality or storyline when I'm just constantly baffled by the fact that Atlas made a 10-year-old girl design and said, yeah, she's totally in high school, guys, trust us. What was going on there, Atlas? Well, for this video, I tried to ignore the weird design and just focus on her storyline. And if you do that, it's decent, I guess. Nothing too crazy, it's just about Ayane overcoming her self-confidence issues and getting better at playing the trombone. Then she gets a chance to be a soloist when the main trombone guy gets injured. Until the incredibly awkward moment where he comes back okay to play, and she feels obligated to relinquish the part she practiced so hard for. The rank 7 event is my favorite in the social link because I like how realistic it feels. No one is really being antagonistic and saying, okay Ayane, you need to step aside and let the pro take it. There is this one girl who's heavily pushing for it, but it doesn't feel too overly malicious, and it's just the one person. Everyone else is just awkwardly shuffling their feet and leaving it up to Ayane to decide. She obviously lets this guy have the part back, and also obviously breaks down about it after everyone leaves. It's a pretty good scene overall, but the build up to it in the previous ranks is a little ho-hum and boring. Plus, rank 8, where she expresses how much she keeps her opinions to herself out of fear of alienating people and starting arguments. I mean, it makes sense for her character and can be pretty relatable, but it also kinda comes out of nowhere. There was never really any scene in the previous ranks where she clearly stifled herself from expressing an opinion, so this rank kinda comes out of left field. With all that said, I'm a huge fan of the gift she gives you in rank 10. A handmade ticket to her future concert when she becomes a famous trombone player. Not if, when. That's really adorable and heartwarming. I love it. Overall, a social link that has its ups and downs, but most of the ups really only kick in the second half. Not bad, but not the best, and coupled with her weird design, yeah, sorry, I'm always picking Yumi as my choice for the Sun Arcana.
Every puzzle has an answer.
Naoto is undoubtedly one of my favorite characters in Persona 4, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't really think she has the most interesting social link. You basically help her solve a bunch of riddles left for her by the Phantom Thief. If that's a reference to something, please let me know because I have no clue. I've never heard of that before. The riddles and puzzles and shit are kinda baby level. And then at the end, it turns out her grandfather, a character we never even meet, concocted them in order to cheer her up. I don't know, it all just feels a little condescending to her character. And that is the point, she says as much when it's all over. But I can't help but feel like a real mystery to help Naoto pursue would have been a lot more interesting. We do at least get some interesting tidbits about Naoto's childhood and how simple and pure her detective aspirations were, before harsh reality set in for her. The moments where she gets flustered are especially adorable coming from her. And I think my favorite rank of the whole thing is 5, since we get a special appearance from Detective Nanako, as well as getting to see this cute-ass detective badge Naoto made as a kid. Definitely has its moments here and there, but overall, it didn't really hold my attention all that much, and I wish a character as interesting as Naoto had something more interesting to do. So is it just me, or is Yukiko the least talked about party member in all of Persona 3 through 5? I barely see any discussion, memes, or anything else about her at all. And like, I guess I can see why. She's just kinda nice and doesn't have a particularly distinct personality compared to the rest of your friends. But I like her. She was actually my go-to romance option in this game before I converted to the Church of Yumi. And even now, I think she's a very underrated character. In terms of her social link, it's good. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. It's just good. Not really a standout. It doesn't provide a ton more insight on her character you couldn't get from the main story, but it's charming enough and it held my attention the whole way through. It doesn't go to any particularly interesting places. Yukiko just decides, hey, maybe I do want to run the inn, even though I said I didn't want to. It's all about her not having a choice in the matter beforehand. But when she finally does have that choice, she realizes that she really values the inn staff and wants to protect it and its reputation. Throughout it all, she works hard to get better at cooking, even as the staff chastises her. I like hearing about her experience with this in the Rank 6 event, probably my favorite in this link. There are some nosy, pervy reporters who try and pressure her into lewd shit, which is kinda weird. They feel more like Rise antagonists and seem a little out of place in a Yukiko story, but they're not in it that much. Sometimes the story can feel a little all over the place, but I think Yukiko's warm and endearing personality shines through the whole time, and watching her get flustered over you is pretty adorable. It works, it's not amazing, but it gets the job done. Rise, my personal best girl choice. Out of the main party members, that is, some of the non-party social link girls clear. As much as I enjoy her character, I do think the social link isn't anything too crazy. Rise keeps insisting throughout the whole thing that she's never gonna go back to being reset. Like, she really hammers it in that she's done with that persona. And then she goes back to it anyway. Wow, who could have guessed? It's nice watching her realize that the reset persona is part of her. But taking 10 social link ranks just to get to that incredibly obvious conclusion without much more going on doesn't make for the most interesting social link. Don't get me wrong, there is other neat stuff here. Namely, for fans of Persona 4 dancing, it's really cool how this is the first time we see Rise's manager Inoue and hear her rival idol Kanami mentioned. These are two characters that get fleshed out a ton in the dancing spin-off, and they both originate from here. I also couldn't help but relate to a lot of Rise's struggles. Like, it's nice when people like me for me, and not just for funny Crabman on YouTube. And I also think a lot about fan letters I've received that express how much my work has impacted someone's young life. There's a lot of good stuff in Rise's storyline here, and I think Rank 7, where she expresses a bit of jealousy about that other idol, Ketamine, then gets reassured about her worth as a person by Nanako, is my favorite. Though Rank 8 kinda loses me a bit by basically taking the love confession out of the love route. Rise talks to the mayor, a character I don't remember seeing anywhere else in game, whose voice acting is, really not great.
I heard the news, about the upcoming film.
The mayor and Inoue basically tell her that Kanami is replacing her, and she's understandably upset by this and wants you to comfort her. For some reason, choosing to hold her instead of just standing there locks you into the romance route, even though neither of you express anything romance related at all in this scene. Excuse me? It robs you two of having a cute confession scene, and it robs this of being a nice moment focused on assuring her that she has a ton of people who love her, not just you. What a weird choice. This is why I always pick Yumi instead of her, SMH. Overall, a solid storyline, but I think it's held back a bit by a couple factors, like the general predictability and botched romance scene, that stop it from being great. Alright, before I continue on with more social links, I just want to take this time to shout out 3 of my favorite Persona 4 adjacent characters who don't appear in the main game, and thus don't have social links. First of all, Labris. Genuinely one of my favorite Persona characters of all time, and she's exclusive to the arena games. It's not fair. I love her accent, I love her deeply emotional backstory and story arc in the present. I don't even really love the arena games all that much since I'm not a huge fighting game fan. But Labris is the best, and her backstory pretty much clears most of the social links I'm talking about in this video. I cannot express enough just how amazing Lapras is. But with that said, we gotta move on to the second awesome obscure Persona 4 character. Aika, the Beef Bowl Shop Girl, who's exclusive to the anime. She's extremely funny and awesome, and probably best girl in the series besides Lapras. I don't know. And finally, the third character I love from the Persona 4 extended universe is Surfshark VPN. They offer some of the best abilities in the game. For instance, they allow you to trick your browser into thinking you're in another country, thus allowing you to access exclusive Netflix or Disney Plus content you couldn't get otherwise. Another really helpful social link ability you get is the Surfshark alert system that gives you alerts anytime your email address or password is compromised. Surfshark Alert scans various databases of leaked information and notifies its users if their data is found so they can take action, which is an absolutely invaluable feature. Surfshark is also totally unlimited, meaning you can use it on as many devices as you like, even all at the same time. The best thing about this character is you don't even need to play Persona 4 to get to know them. All you gotta do is go to surfshark.deal/Rillis and enter promo code Rillis to get 83% off and 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN for free. It's an amazing deal, and it's even better because it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you're not satisfied, you can cancel during those 30 days and get your money back. If you're looking for a great VPN, there's no reason not to give Surfshark a try. Once again, head to surfshark.deal/Rillis and enter the promo code Rillis. Have a great time with Surfshark VPN. Okay, that's enough of these 3 extremely epic characters. Time for more social links.
I wish the Lord would take me now.
Hisano Kuroda is an often neglected social link by a lot of the fanbase, but I definitely think it's an underrated one. Not perfect, but still really good. She introduces herself as Death. Like, literally, just she represents the abstract concept of death.
And I don't mean it metaphorically or rhetorically.
Yeah, eventually you find out she was just being melodramatic in that regard. And when I say eventually, I mean rank 7 out of 10. This is the social link's biggest flaw in my opinion. You take way too long to figure out what this lady's deal is. She tells you about how she misses her late husband, and my personal favorite part of the story is actually rank 3, where she explains the history of how she and her husband met as children when he was part of an acting troupe, eventually resulting in them building a life together. It's sweet, and I like spending time with her and all that, but the story only really gets going at rank 7 when you find the letters they wrote to each other and prompt her to tell you what the whole death thing was about. Her husband had Alzheimer's, which ultimately made her feel incredibly alone, even subconsciously wishing for his death. I don't really think it's out of the ordinary to desire an end to someone's pain and suffering that they won't get better from, however. I think Hisano is making a bit of a leap and overreacting by calling herself Death. Yet, I can't blame her for feeling this way. It's a very complicated situation. Ultimately, these last 4 ranks are very touching and emotional as we encourage Hisano to move on and live as the woman her husband loved. It's beautiful and an honor to take the pen she wrote the letters with and carry on her story. This is a really good one. It doesn't have the best pacing, but the tragic story on offer here is still very strong.
Acting is the only way to act.
Oh, Yumi, you just can't catch a break, can you? You have the most brutal rejection scene out of any romanceable character in the game. The anime completely ignored you in favor of Ayane. What did you do to deserve all this? Oh well, as a consolation prize, I think you're best girl in the game, don't tell anyone. Alright, you at home are probably wondering how the hell I like this not super talked about side character over iconic girls like Chie, Rise, Naoto, and the Red One. Well, the answer is simple. She's a theater kid. That's all it takes for me, really. Plus, her rejection scene is really cruel. Like, I can't just not date her after that. Come on. Okay, let me back up. In Persona 4, you're given the option to join Band or Drama Club, which equates to either Ayane or Yumi's social link. You can't do both in a single playthrough, which is stupid. This isn't the only time Persona 4 pulls this stunt either. It's pretty annoying, and thankfully it isn't a thing in 3 or 5. But with that said, it's not too big a deal here because Yumi clears Ayane with ease. Why? Because she's a theater kid. I should probably get into other reasons why I like this social link. After 2 pretty normal ranks where we see Yumi acting circles around everyone else in the group, we then suddenly find out that her estranged dad is dying. And as much as she wants to hate him and have nothing to do with him since he abandoned her and her mother, I mean, like, he's dying. What is she supposed to do? It's an extremely complicated situation where Yumi doesn't want to abandon her principles and forgive the man who left a gaping hole in her life all these years. But like, wouldn't it just be so cruel to deny him his last request to reconnect with you? It's just so sad to see her conflicted like this, as well as torn away from the acting she pours so much passion into. The link can be somewhat repetitive across the middle ranks, but it really picks up towards the end with both her father's actual death and my personal favorite, rank 9, where her emotions come out in full force, leaving you to console her as that damn da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na song radiates through your heart. It's just transcendent. Alright, we gotta talk about her rejection scene though. Holy shit. Most girls will confess that they like you, and then you have the option to say, I like you as a friend, or I love you, and all you guys. You know, something along those lines. And then the girl will be a bit flustered, but for the most part, totally okay, and the scene goes on as normal. Not Yumi though. She turns around and tells you to leave the room if you don't want to go out with her. Bro, I don't have the heart to leave her standing there. That's so cruel. Can you imagine doing that? Plus, she's a theater kid, so like, yeah, I'm locked in. Yumi for life, baby! You know, now that I think about it, she's such a good actress that maybe she was just putting on a performance with this whole turnaround thing in order to guarantee you felt guilty and accepted her. That's pretty delightfully devilish, not gonna lie. Or maybe she was being completely genuine, who knows. Either way, Yumi best girl. I don't see Rise doing theater, SMH.
Where's the beef?
Chie's social link is kind of a deceptively strong one. It's not really the most emotional thing in the world compared to a lot of the other ones, but it's a wonderful exhibition of her growth as a character and her desire to protect the people she holds dear. There's a good progression to it, and it held my attention without ever really getting dull. It starts out with the two of you training together, getting into silly grasshopper-related shenanigans with Nanako, and dealing with this kinda dickish guy Chie knows who's really into Yukiko and isn't shy about saying so. I like how you can subtly tell that Chie is a bit envious of all the attention Yukiko gets from guys, without her having to say so during this link. Overall, it's a good first half carried by Chie's endearing personality, but I especially love how in the second half, Chie's resolve to help people results in her confronting a group of bullies twice and getting them to stop harassing someone. The first time, you're forced to interfere, but in the second confrontation, you can just let Chie do her thing. And while her actions are incredibly reckless, they do work in terms of getting the bullies to leave. I don't know, it's just hard not to be proud of her as her resolve to save people actually pays off and works out. Though, my favorite part of the social link is rank 8, where after we hear from that one asshole kid about how Chie got her cooties all over Yukiko or whatever, Chie explains how she and Yukiko first met and her attempts to cheer Yukiko up back when she found a dog her parents wouldn't allow her to keep. Chie even casually mentions that she owns the dog now. And it's overall just really heartwarming seeing how much Chie cares about protecting her best friend. I'm always a big fan of pieces of fiction that have a large group as the main cast, and yet within that large group is a pair of inseparable besties. I call it the Troy and Abed effect. Chie and Yukiko's friendship is one of the most heartwarming aspects of Persona 4's cast. And I love how this social link can express just how strong it is without having Yukiko physically appear at all. It's beautiful. I'm a big fan of Chie's social link, and her character in general has really grown on me as the years have gone on. Not to the point where I ever want to romance her, but with that said, I absolutely love her one line when you do romance her, and she says, "Are you sure? This is me we're talking about." Choosing her as your girlfriend and breaking through the low self-esteem she struggles with when it comes to being a girl, it really warms my heart. Despite her self-doubt, Chie is absolutely just as worthy of love as the more traditionally feminine girls in the group. With that said, I'm still not picking her. Sorry, Yumi gang for life!
Oh, women! It's always something.
Ko and Daisuke are interesting because they're best buddies and are intrinsically linked to each other's social link. But you can only pick one of them to pursue in a single playthrough. It's kinda like Yumi and Ayane, except at least you'll get some quality time with either Ko or Daisuke. Is it Ko or Ku? I forgot.
Number 1 and 2, the strength. Ko Ichijo and
Ko. Okay, it rhymes with Po, I gotta remember that. But at least you'll get some quality time with either Ko or Daisuke in the link that isn't focused on them. It's a shame too, because I think both of these links are really good. But since I'm of the opinion that Ko's is a fair bit better, I always pick him and I never really dive into Daisuke's inner turmoil. With that said, yeah, Daisuke's story is great. I love how Ko's presence here makes it so you don't actually get all the information on what's going on inside Daisuke's head. This was a problem for me in Hisano's link because there was no one else for you to talk to there. But with this one, it's interesting how you and Ko have to speculate on what's wrong with your friend. Why he's not doing too well inside. soccer right now, and why he randomly started hating women. How you gonna fix the Daisuke misogyny arc? Well, as it turns out, he pushes them away because he feels like he'd make an inadequate partner due to some trauma he accrued as a result of how his last relationship ended. I can certainly understand and even relate to some aspects of his storyline. I definitely find myself still carrying a lot of concerns from a previous relationship that never really went away. But Yu and Ko are able to help Daisuke overcome his issues and even find closure with his ex. It's a really touching storyline that keeps you intrigued as to what's eating Daisuke the whole time, before it all comes to a head in rank 8. My personal favorite of the storyline, where Ko tries to set him up on a blind group date, which he rejects immediately. After a climactic argument, we finally get to the heart of the matter with him, and it really feels like your bonds as friends are strengthening. I mean, that's the point, right? That's what it always says at the end of every rank up for every social link. But this is one of those times where those words especially feel earned. Even though Daisuke's social link tends to get overshadowed by Ko's, both in my brain and from what I've generally seen from the fanbase, I still think it's fantastic and pretty underrated. Though, am I crazy, or does Daisuke look almost exactly like Dojima? Like, both the portraits and especially the models look so similar. Are they father and son? What's going on here?
Why are you eating cereal at 3 a.m.?
Fun fact, when writing about the social links in general, I didn't really know which game to start with, let alone which character. After some deliberation though, I figured, Yosuke, why not? He seemed like a really simple and easy place to start with. And then halfway through I remembered, oh yeah, Atlas cut his romance option. I need to talk about that. Shit. Ah well, let's judge it as is first. It's really, really great. I love how it focuses on how much he misses Saki, someone who doesn't really come up that much in the main story. But it makes sense for Yosuke to still be talking about her, to be so resolved to solve these murders because one of them was the girl he loved. I think it's such an interesting dynamic too, that she didn't love him back. And he knows this, yet he still mourns the fact that he never got to know her better. That's more interesting and different to me than just straight up mourning a romantic partner. Standing up for him when the gaudy Juness girls chew him out is a good moment, and as out of left field as it is, I think the last scene where you two just punch out your feelings really works. Even the anime knew they had to adapt it, so they added it right before the gang figures out the true killer. Once again, I can't describe why, but that choice just really works. It's nice to come to this mutual understanding through this feat of strength. And yet, my favorite rank has to be 8, when Yosuke recalls how Saki was the first person to make him feel at home in Iniba. He then cries as he acknowledges that he'll have nothing once the case is over, and then you can hug him. It's a really tender moment that I think he appreciates, even if he does say, "You dumbass, that's for girls." Yosuke is a guy that I see a lot of internalized homophobia and unhealthy ideas about masculinity in. And I can so easily picture the romance route Atlas plans to add, but backtracked on, naturally playing out based on everything that came before it. It would have been a nice alternative to the polar opposite where you guys punch your feelings out. And I'm not gonna hold its exclusion against this social link. I think it really works for what it is. A nice, pretty focused deep dive into what drives Yosuke as a person. It's clear he has more room to grow, but hey, he's a teenager, it makes sense. Not the flashiest social link out there, but a very strong, down-to-earth one.
Oh my god, cheers.
Ebihara did nothing wrong. I just want to state that right off the bat. Okay, maybe she was mean to that boy she rejected in rank 3, but otherwise she did nothing wrong. This is a fairly divisive social link from what I've seen. And I guess it makes sense since Ai comes off as a pretty stereotypical rich bitch at first. And yet, I kind of feel like the people who write her off as just being that probably didn't get very far in the social link. Ai's storyline is all about deconstructing the Ice Queen archetype and figuring out what caused her to act this way in the first place. It all stems from insecurity and trauma from the bullying she received in her childhood. She tells you that she was ugly, fat, and poor. But as she got older, her family came upon wealth, she tried losing weight, and she started dressing much more fashionably. Essentially, she reinvented herself by the time high school rolled around, adopting a much more stuck-up and rude persona. Hey, that's the name of the series. Much like how a certain highly beloved Persona 3 social link perfectly represents the themes of that game, Ai Ebihara is an excellent example of a side story perfectly encapsulating the main theme of Persona 4. Ai has rejected the real her. From the things she really likes, to whatever positive personality traits she had before. She sacrificed all of it just for the sake of maintaining her external image as someone pretty and popular. She has a warped sense of what people value in a romantic partner, to the point where she simply can't fathom the idea that her crush, Ko,
Damn it!
is himself crushing on not her, but Chie. Chie, of all characters. Look, Chie's great, but I can't exactly see her as the kind of girl who would attract a ton of suitors in high school. But Ko's crush on her isn't a shallow one solely based on looks or how rich a girl is. He likes her for her, and I simply can't fathom that idea because of how screwed up her sense of self-worth and perception of emotional bonds are. It's pretty clear that she needs time to focus on herself and who she is, rather than getting with some guy first and foremost. That's why, in a particularly brilliant touch, you can actually start dating her as early as rank 6, right after she gets so flustered from learning about Ko's love for Chie that she almost jumps off the roof. Yeah, I don't really think she's in the right mental space to start dating anyone. And yet, she suggests dating you as a little JK haha unless moment. You can do the responsible thing and bring her back to her senses, resulting in the social link playing out as normal and you being able to date her for real at the end. But if you say yes to her here at rank 6, you actually start dating. And it's horribly awkward because you didn't give Ai the chance to reflect and work on herself. Instead, she's just with another guy, and the cycle of suppressing her true self continues. It ends with you two inevitably breaking up, locking you into the friendship route. And I think the effort they put into this alternate timeline version of the route is really commendable. It enhances the character and the story they're telling with her so much. I'm obviously a much bigger canon route fan myself, particularly because rank 8 in that route is my favorite. Ai realizes she's over her crush, and then starts telling you just a bunch of preferences and opinions she has about random things. All stuff she hid away because of how much she denied her true self. It's so effective, assuring you that she's on the road to recovery from this mindset that was making her miserable all these years. Ai Ebihara's social link is just absurdly good and high effort. And I really wish people would stop dismissing her because she's mean or she's melodramatic. It's a story about her growing past these character flaws, man. I don't know what to tell you. She's not even unlikable for that much of the social link like the Gourmet King. They pretty much finished getting that point across by rank 3. And from there, the story is about her becoming better. It's good! It's a great-ass social link! Sorry if you can't see that, society!
My cabbages!
Is Adachi the objectively funniest Persona character of all time, complete with a really fantastic social link that wasn't actually in the original game. Golden added it, and I'm glad they did, because it seems like it would be a little bit sus if you're playing the original and one of the supporting characters you see pretty often just doesn't have a social link. Like, why? Is he the killer or something? Oh, he is, huh? Damn. This link makes Adachi seem a lot less suspicious. And more importantly, it paints a damn interesting portrait of his character we never get to see otherwise. Everyone knows that Adachi is meant to represent what would happen to you, Narukami, if you never made any friends or bonds. He's a loner who finds himself incredibly bored by life in the boonies, and he compensates for said boredom by becoming a serial murderer. It's good to have hobbies, I guess, but it's pretty clear from this social link that Adachi could have walked the same path as you if he really put in the effort to. There's this old lady who takes a liking to him solely because he has the same first name as her son. Yeah, she's a bit on the talkative side, but Adachi could have gotten to know her. This could have been an easy social link for him to rank up, but instead he avoids her at every opportunity because he just doesn't value forming bonds with others like we do. Adachi similarly joins you for dinner, and he does a great job of entertaining Nanako and helping her with her schoolwork. Adachi and Nanako's back and forth banter is really endearing, and it seems like he's enjoying the time he spends with the two of you. He even does a magic trick, which, I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea how he got that coin in my pocket. We were sitting so far away, how the hell did he do that? But he muses that maybe he should have been a magician this whole time. I don't think it was too late for Adachi to try and find a new path in life by any means. And it becomes evident across this link that he is his own worst enemy in this regard. He could change and improve at any point with your help, but he just chooses not to. All of this is, of course, thrown for a loop when he's revealed to be the killer, resulting in the best scene in the link, which isn't actually a rank up. Rather, it's an entire arcana change, from the Jester to the Hunger. It's chilling watching the Jester card break away to reveal Adachi's true form. And the rest of the scene is beautifully intense. Adachi basically chastises you for choosing to believe in his false persona, and then feeling betrayed when the mask came off. He fires his gun right past your head and insists he won't miss next time, only for you to think it didn't seem like a threat. I just find that line so fascinating. The idea that despite Adachi's insistence that he's this cold, unfeeling monster, Yu doesn't think he has it in him to actually kill him. Why else would he have come here alone to try and reason with Adachi? He believes in his inherent goodness and doesn't even flinch as a bullet flies past his ear. We all love to call this guy Chad Narukami because of his cool as hell demeanor in the anime. But this moment right here might be his biggest Chad move in the game. In general, this is one of my favorite scenes the game has to offer. I love when there's a dynamic with an antagonist that's exclusive to you and not the rest of your party. That's personally why I'm not as big on the rank 9 and 10 events. They feel a lot less intimate when you have the whole gang here. I guess it couldn't really be avoided for rank 9, but Adachi's letter very easily could have been read before you went to the food court with the squad. It even kind of messes up the pacing of the scene, since they're all talking about the origin of the Midnight Channel, and then you pause the conversation to read this letter that's only partially related to that. Even so, it's a good conclusion for Adachi. A storm of conflicting emotions, reminiscing on his time spent with you and your family, and calling you a dumbass. Classic Adachi. The other problem I have with rank 9 is how they kind of just spell out the idea that Adachi is a friendless version of you. Like, I think that would have been cooler for people to figure out themselves. I mean, you and Adachi share the same voice actor. It's not exactly hard to piece together, and we didn't need our hand held through it. Even so, I'm nitpicking what is ultimately a fantastic social link. One that gives you a whole new perspective on his character and makes you lament how he turned out. He even says marriage is where fun goes to die. Classic Adachi.
I love balls.
Yeah, sorry Daisuke, your social link is great and all, but Ko's just hits way harder. Which is impressive considering it's a far less relatable situation for the average player. Ko was the heir to an insanely rich and prestigious family who was adopted because the last male in the family, Ko's adoptive father, didn't have any kids and they wanted the family to keep going. Until surprise, suddenly the dad did have a kid and the official bloodline can continue. So, where does that leave Ko? He found it frustrating to live under the family's thumb and give up so many of his hobbies growing up. But now, it's equally frustrating and jarring for the family to suddenly say, actually, you're good, go do whatever you want now. It's a really interesting conflict where Ko was only ever allowed to be the heir to the family growing up. And suddenly, they don't need him to be that anymore. So, who is he? Playing basketball, which used to bring him such joy, now makes him feel nothing. He slips into a depressive funk, and it's up to you and Daisuke to try and bring him out of it. And that's followed up by the stuff with the orphanage and the letter he gets. Honestly, it's so great just how many developments there are in this story without it feeling overstuffed or rushed at the beginning. This has gotta be one of the best paced social links in the whole series. It doesn't take long to get to the point, no rank is wasted, and so many of them are just heartbreaking. In spite of how ultra specific the situation is, it feels so realistic. No one in the family is an evil villain who's actively trying to make Ko feel bad about himself. He's just stuck in his own headspace, contemplating what his place in the world could possibly be now. There's a lot of great ranks later on, especially the last few, but I think my personal favorite is rank 5, where you just have a heart-to-heart with him on the roof, and he explains his depressed mindset right now. It's just a really tender and understated link that honestly made me tear up a few times. Especially in that part at the beginning where Ko talks about how much he loves balls, and playing with balls.
I love balls.
What a beautiful moment. This is the same guy who is the only character to canonically have a crush on noted tomboy Chie, and in Daisuke's link, he passionately blurts out, "What am I to you?" But you know what? Yeah, game, I'm sure he's only interested in women. That That makes sense. Seriously though, I love the fact that there's a character with pretty unsubtle gay undertones. But that's just one facet of him, and his storyline is about something completely different. He's just a great, well-rounded character. I'd rather have him as my lifelong partner through this crazy mystery adventure than Yosuke, honestly. Sorry, man.
You can go play doll.
Good old Kanji. He's such a hard character to hate. Just this endearing teddy bear who hides underneath a rough and tumble punk exterior. And I think his social link is a perfect encapsulation of that. It centers around him getting acquainted with this kid who got bullied for playing with his friend's doll and ended up throwing it away. So after trying to look for it and not finding it, Kanji resolves to make the kid a new one. The dolls Kanji makes are so good that the kid asks for more for his friends, mom, and teacher. And Kanji's mom even decides to sell them at their store. This all comes back to save Kanji from some cops harassing him, since the kid and his mom back him up, citing his doll making hobby as the reason he's talking to this kid and generally staying out of trouble. This storyline is focused, well-paced, and a perfect supplement to Kanji's character. You really feel like he's grown throughout all of it and is not only far less ashamed of his hobbies, but also making a conscious effort to be kinder to people and not push them away. I think the heart of this storyline really is his connection with this kid. I get the sense that Kanji definitely could have used a role model growing up to assure him that there was nothing to be ashamed of with his hobbies. And now he gets to be that role model for this kid. That's simply beautiful. And my favorite part of this link is rank 5 when he first gives the kid the dolls. Seeing how insanely excited the kid gets over them, a sharp contrast to the dismissal and humiliation Kanji was expecting. It just warms my heart so much. Just a fantastic social link for a fantastic character.
Great vegetables.
Dojima's social link is pretty straightforward on paper, but with an absolutely masterful execution. The man lost his wife to a hit and run, and has dedicated so much of his time to a fruitless search for the perpetrator. This search, on top of his regular duties at the police station, have prevented him from spending time with his daughter Nanako. Well, it's not just that. He also doesn't really know how to raise her since his wife was always better at that sort of thing. Underneath his rough and unfriendly exterior, Dojima is a man in tremendous pain who's hopelessly lost without the love of his life. And watching him open up to you about his trauma, his inadequacy as a father, his single-minded focus on this wild goose chase with no leads, which he assumes will help both him and Nanako move past this, it's just fantastic drama. And it means a lot that he starts to view you more and more as family as it goes on. Rank 9 is my favorite because he, in a rather corny manner, declares that today is the day you, him, and Nanako finally become a family. And Nanako is reasonably like, wait, weren't we already a family? Dojima explains later that he meant it in the sense that he didn't want to try and have a real family again because of his fear of loss. Yeah, this is a pretty devastating scene if you know what happens later in the story. But in this moment, Dojima is ready to start again. It simply feels amazing to not only bring a family closer together, but actively be a part of it. This is a wonderful social link, and one of the first ones I think of when this game comes to mind. It does have a lot of overlap with another S tier link though. I wonder if we'll see that one very soon.
Every day's great at your tuneness.
Oh my god, no way! It's the social link with a lot of overlap with Dojima! That's crazy! Nanako came really close to being my #1 favorite Persona 4 social link. Like, it was one of the tightest races I've ever had in a ranking video. But in the end, I decided this one was ever so slightly lesser because it benefits a lot from being played alongside Dojima's link. They really feel like two halves of the same story, whereas the #1 P4 pick stands on its own. But I don't want that to diminish just how powerful and devastating this link is. If I had to pick the most important character in the MC's story for each of these games, the person that the protagonist forms the most compelling and essential bond with in every bit of required story the game has, 3's is pretty unambiguously Aigis, with Ryoji and Yukari not being too far behind. And with 5, I really don't think you can argue that it's anyone but Akechi. These are all characters who know what's up with this whole Persona thing, and your connection with them stretches across both halves of the gameplay. With Persona 4, however, I'd argue that the most meaningful relationship Yu Narukami forms throughout the main story is with Nanako. Not only do many late game events revolve around her, but she's always around day after day, becoming a fixture in your life who you care deeply about protecting. It's a pretty impressive feat for a character who never learns about any of this Persona or TV world stuff. Someone who mostly serves as your anchor to everyday life in the real world. And not only is her implementation in the main story great, but her social link is an absolutely devastating and surprisingly heavy experience. She laments how busy her father always is, and eventually comes to the conclusion that he doesn't love her or see her as his real daughter. She also expresses concern at how he never talks about her mom, or even has any photos of her up. No doubt a grieving process of his that remains completely foreign to her. It's so hard for her to understand what's going on in his head. I mean, how else do you expect a 6-year-old to react to a constantly absent dad and a dead mom? Everything comes to a head in my personal favorite, Rank 7, where Nanako reaches her breaking point and runs away. After you and your friends go searching for her, you eventually find her at the riverbank and convince her that her dad does care about her. A moment that speaks volumes to the bond you formed with her, because even Dojima concedes that you'll have an easier time talking to her than he will. It's just a heartbreaking story of a lost, lonely girl who needs someone in her life to look after her. Much like Dojima's Link, it's simple yet extremely effective, with both links working in tandem to create such a compelling portrait of a father and daughter who are unable to heal their emotional wounds and connect with each other until your gentle, guiding hand comes into their life. Simply phenomenal stuff. Even if I do think there's one link in Persona 4 that remains superior. Look, just as a disclaimer, I've been on the Naoki Konishi hype train for quite a few years now. I always thought he was one of the best social links in Persona 4. My appreciation for his character isn't a recent development. That said, yeah, maybe I needed this storyline in my life right now, so what? Naoki is the brother of Saki Konishi, one of the victims of the TV murders. Obviously, the loss of his sister is hard on him, but at the same time, he finds it rather frustrating that nobody will treat him normally anymore. It's always, oh, you don't need to do your schoolwork, Naoki. You don't need to do anything for this club. Hey, why aren't you grieving the right way? Why are you trying to be cheerful and upbeat after this tragedy? And it's like, what the fuck do these people want out of him? To be locked in some dark room crying all the time? Yeah, obviously he's in tremendous emotional pain, but everyone responds to that differently, and some people don't find solace in being coddled like this. Some people just want to be treated normally. They look at their friends and colleagues going about their normal lives and become envious of that. Naoki is someone buckling under the weight of both intense grief and vigilant societal expectations for how that grief should be publicly processed, which is the sort of storyline I just don't see that often in anything. It's just consistently gripping to see Naoki grapple with the role he now thinks he has to play in his broken family. For him to hear from Yosuke how much Saki talked about and appreciated him. For him to ultimately break down at the prospect of how much Saki would have wanted to live more. The Rank 9 event, which shows Naoki's release of all these pent-up emotions and sorrow, would have been the crown jewel of any other social link. But nah, Rank 7 is what really got me. Naoki tells a simple story about how he would always get cream puffs and put them in the fridge, and Saki would always eat them. Just the sort of sibling interaction you'd come to expect, and even take for granted. Except now, there's no one to eat Naoki's cream puffs before he does, so they expire in the fridge. And it's this small, innocuous thing that finally makes reality sink in for him. I haven't had a normal trip to the grocery store in so long. I keep looking at my cart and thinking, this isn't everything. I used to get way more snacks than this. But now, I just don't need as much. Well, what can we do? We must live our lives. The Persona series has portrayed countless examples of grief over the years, but I don't think any have quite captured its inherent messiness quite like Naoki's social link has. It goes far beyond the surface level and really speaks to something profound and absurdly truthful. I don't even think you need personal experience with grief to get wrapped up in this insanely well-paced and consistently engaging tragedy. It's simply outstanding. And if you can just get past Naoki's surly attitude at the beginning, it really isn't difficult to see why. Once again, it was a close race with Nanako, but ultimately, Naoki is my pick for the best social link in Persona 4. So that's my Persona 4 social link ranking. Next up, I'm gonna be doing Persona 5, since it narrowly won a Twitter poll on which one I should do next. I actually already finished the script because I procrastinated on releasing this video for too long, so it'll be fairly soon. Oh yeah, and if you're interested, check out Space Chris 7, the channel where me, Chris, Patrick, and the rest of our friends did a bunch of wacky, abridged video game dubs. We kinda made up our own lore and didn't read the script exactly how it was, so it ended up being pretty fun. We even did Persona 4 twice. The second time being with a custom-made mod pack, which, yeah, as you can see, it was, something. So yeah, definitely check this out if you want to see some more Persona stuff from us. And that's about it. Good night, Iniba.